I am your host, Josh Appelman, founder and CEO of Appelman Properties. Today, we're joined with Yang Nugent. Yang is a seasoned real estate investor and founder of One River Capital, pairs her scientific prowess with passion and financial empowerment. Yang, if you could let the listeners know a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Hi, Josh. Hi, everybody. My name is Yang. I am an immigrant. I grew up in Vietnam and came over to the US for college. I actually majored in biology in college. And then after that, I was working as a scientist, generating a gene therapy for a blood disorder called hemophilia A for almost 10 years. So I started investing in real estate back in 2015. A little bit accidentally at first. I bought my single family that was completely vacant for almost 20 years. So first project, and I got to learn so much about real estate and about construction overall. So since that multifamily, I moved on to duplexes conversions. I was bitten by the real estate bugs, and I could really see how it could really help me and my financial freedom. After the duplexes, I then move on to small multifamily in the 5 to 8 unit space. I built a personal portfolio of cash flowing multifamily, and that actually helped replace my income. So I actually reached my financial freedom, and I left my W-2 just last August. So I am in my first year of being a full-time real estate investor. I am now a full-time real estate investor and multifamily syndicator. And my goal now is to help educate other people on the power of passive real estate investing. I am still actively investing, actively syndicating. And yeah, my passion now is to get to talk to a lot of people, sharing my knowledge, sharing education, and just meet wonderful people that I get to work with in the real estate space.
That's awesome. I love hearing the background of you starting from ground zero, buying your first rental, fixing it up, and then another rental and another rental. That you've got hands-on experience from starting from essentially the ground floor, which is great because that's what a lot of listeners want to hear is how do you go from no rentals to buying your first rental? What was the biggest fear when you jumped from no rentals to your first rental, and then what did you find out after that, and then how did you scale?
Yeah, you're gonna find this interesting, and maybe the listeners will too. I didn't know anything. I didn't even know mortgage existed. I didn't know that you could invest in real estate. So back home, back in Vietnam, the real estate space is very different. We don't really have mortgage. People don't usually invest similarly. So growing up, both my parents were teachers, and I didn't know anything about real estate or real estate investing. Now, here's the interesting thing, because I didn't know anything, I wasn't scared of anything, right? You cannot be scared of what you don't know. Yeah. So for me, jumping in was like, yeah, I'll buy something. I bought a single family that was actually in foreclosure. It was vacant, so there was no electricity, no water, no HVAC. In fact, we actually had a foundation issues because there was a 2-story tall tree that was growing in the foundation wall. So first property out of the bat, and didn't know anything, and that was what I was, going into. And so back then, guys, this is how much I didn't know anything. I was searching for contractors on Craigslist. So if you're listening and you're not sure where to start, I can give you a tip that please do not search for contractor on Craigslist. Like the best way to find contractor now that I know is to ask other investors. Like you ask people who have experience, who had used contractors, right? Because that referral is your best way of finding contractors. But I just want to share that, saying yes to the next opportunity in front of you is probably the best advice that I could give. Because if you have a community around you that can support you, if you know that you can figure out, and I just trust yourself, like you can figure it out. Knowing all of that will propel you forward. And I learned so much from that $30,000 foreclosure property by doing a lot of these things and figuring a lot of things out myself than I could have had from maybe reading the books or a podcast. So prep work can only get you so far, and the growth really happens from when you're jumping in and trust that you have a community and trust that you can figure it out.
Yeah, I'd say definitely taking action. You can get into
Yeah.
analysis paralysis, but once you
Yep.
take the leap, take action, and find out it's not that bad on the other side. Now it becomes you want to do it again. You want to get another rental. So it's
Yeah.
that's awesome. So do you still have your rentals since you are syndicating now?
No, I still have my rentals. I have never gotten into flipping. All of my investments have been long-term rentals.
Yeah.
So I live in that single family for a little bit, and it is now has become a rental. I have I have held on to actually all except for one properties. They're all long-term rentals.
Nice.
Um, I'm not sure. I mean, I'll be honest and say that on the syndication side, and Josh, you probably have maybe experienced this too, is on the syndicator side, there's not a lot of cash flow, especially in this market, especially in this interest rate environment.
Yeah.
So that's just, it is what it is. So for me, my advice would be if you are looking for cash flow, you will probably see that more if you JV or invest on multifamily on your own on the smaller side. Or as a passive investors, that's where you would see the cash flow. As a general partner, the cash flow probably not gonna kick in maybe until like year 3, 4, 5 when you have a bit more rent growth, but that's just the truth of the business, so to speak.
Yeah, it's delayed gratification. As long as you're not counting it as a primary source of revenue, then you're good because it's not going to be a primary.
Yep.
It's a snowball effect. You've got your,
Absolutely.
own a little of a lot, and
Yeah.
it makes sense down the road. And you're still getting all the benefits. You're just not you're not getting the cash flow. So it's good. Let's talk about capital raising. So you started out in your rentals. You started out from ground floor. What got you into to doing capital raising and getting involved on larger properties?
Yeah, so I was involved in kind of the single family and the 2 to 4 unit size. And I really like the cash flow in the 2 to 4 unit. Now the struggle I had doing 2 to 4 unit is finding a nice comparable for my properties. There are very limited comparables for 2 to 4 unit, especially if you are rehabbing it, you're turning it nicely. Not a lot of people rehab nicely 2 to 4 units and then sell it. So my struggle there was I was having really hard time being able to buy something, rehab, refinance, rent, refinance, and repeat that whole burr process because it was so hard to find a good comp in that space.
Yeah.
So I went to a presentation about multifamily that has 5 units or above. And it just clicked, right? That on this space, anything 5 unit or above, you can control the value because you can really control the property just like a business. So you can really drive the income, you can decrease the expense, and you can really control the value. So that was like a light bulb moment for me when I'm like, great, like this is what I needed. So I actually then move on to the 5+ unit size on my own, which help with the cash flow, which I can control the value. And so that makes a lot of sense. And now after multiple of them, I'm like, okay, how can I scale quicker? And I think that's the trajectory, right? We're already looking to how can we do things more efficiently? How can we get the economy of scale? And larger multifamilies just seems like a perfect fit. And so just in the trajectory, we're moving from, okay, how big can we JV and when is it that we syndicate? So I'm still fine tuning what that line looks like. And I'm still balancing doing both between JV and syndication on this larger scale. Capital raising, that came about just from my conversation with other people. So as a scientist, I work in a hospital and I was sharing what I was doing in real estate as I was working as a scientist.
Nice.
As most people can see the benefits of real estate, they can really see the cash flow, the appreciation, the tax benefit. They can see it, they can understand it. But what stopped most people from getting in is I don't have time, I don't have experience, and I just don't want to experience that steep learning curve.
Yeah.
So from talking to a lot of people and, I understand like, hey, I really want to help people get over all of that things that hold them back. The other side of it is, as an immigrant, I was looking around and I couldn't quite see actually a lot of immigrants investing in real estate. I feel like for a lot of us, we came over to the US, we like kind of taught to maybe go to a good school, get a good job, and then life just kind of stopped after that, right? You always follow the rules and you're always working for other people. And so I just feel like not a lot of people understand, immigrants specifically, understand the benefit of real estate and what real estate in the US could provide for them and for their family. So the capital raising.
On that note, I don't want to cut you off, but you just made a great point. So immigrants investing, there are a lot of programs in order to get your green card or get citizenship by investing into the United States. Can you touch on that? And I actually had this brought up earlier today on a conversation. Can you elaborate on the benefits of an immigrant wanting to get their citizenship and how they can invest in order to help facilitate that?
I would say, first, disclosure, I am not a lawyer and I'm not an accountant. So obviously all of this information is for, I'm going to say, educational purpose, right?
But perfect.
Yeah, there we go. There's a disclaimer there. So I would say that if that's something that you're looking to do, certainly first reach out to a lawyer contact, and especially immigration lawyers. I can speak on both sides. So first, specifically, if you're an immigrant in the US, certainly check the visa regulation, because from my understanding is actually a lot of immigrants couldn't quite flip, especially if they don't have a green card or citizenship. Because if you're here on a work visa or a J1 exchange visa and you consider doing real estate, a lot of flipping is considered active income. So a visa regulation is that you cannot work for yourself even, or you can work for other people except for your employer. So a lot of that actually prevent people from flipping. Now, rental you could do that because it can be considered passive income, but certainly consult your lawyers and certainly make it as passive as possible with property management, realtor, make it as passive, truly as passive as possible. So that is if you want to do it on the active side. Now, Josh, you mentioned that program when people can come into the US, invest a certain amount, create a certain amount of job, and become get a green card and eventually citizenship. That program is certainly a great program. What you really want to take a look into is that regulation about creating jobs and what that really means. So I think that's something that you want to discuss with the lawyers, discuss with the investor that you're investing with, and create something there, because you need to check all of those boxes for the real estate investment to make sense. So I think there's certainly a lot of benefits for real estate investing for immigrants. And that's why I'm like, hey guys, like, this is available. You don't have to keep working until you want to retire. Like, you need to retire. So so a lot of capital raising is coming from just sharing our information and seeing that there's a need there for someone to guide them through the journey.
That's perfect. That is perfect. And essentially somebody that's wanting to come start exploring their citizenship, they can invest into syndications or projects or developments. There's criteria it has to meet. And as far as like job creation or the type of development, I don't know enough to even talk educated about it, but I know just surface level information. And there's huge benefits on both sides, both the syndicator side, the sponsor side, and the immigration coming over to get your visa card. It's huge.
Yeah. And then I think even for people who outside of the US who, maybe real estate investing in their home country are not beneficial, or it's not, or regulation aren't really supporting it. I'm seeing a lot more foreigners also investing in the US market. And similarly on the syndication side, right? If you are foreigners living outside the US, you can invest in the US real estate market. You just have to find operators who are familiar with that process, because similarly what Josh was saying, there's a lot of rules, a lot of regulation, a lot of hoops to jump through. So you want to find an operators who experience in that process and be able to guide you through that process.
Do you know if that would have to be like a Reg C or a Reg D 506B or C?
Yeah, so very interesting question. There's a couple of ways that this can happen. I know some, and I haven't really started this yet, but there is a regulation S for actually specifically that would be exclusively for people who are outside of the US.
Interesting.
No people in the US can invest in that. Regulation S is something. However, if someone is outside who would like to invest in the US market, you don't have to create a Regulation S exclusively. It can be a 506B or 506C.
Cool.
It's just that there is, for example, as an operator, you want to make sure, you are not, there's like tax, not regulation, but essentially there's tax liability on you as a operators. So ideally the person would create an LLC here in the US and then invest in 506B, 506C through that LLC instead of
Got it.
just
And then
on
the
the
LLC has a address here, and then that's managed by um, someone that's
accountant.
here. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Well, they can own the LLC, but essentially it's like managed through an accountant as an EIN. So all of that tax is now reported through an LLC. So then you as an operator don't have that liability. Again,
Cool.
not an accountant, not a lawyer, just
Just
sharing what I know
sharing
so
education.
far.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. Just sharing
Yep.
education. That's what we're here for. Cool.
Absolutely.
But on to your capital raising, your road to getting down to capital raising and how you got there. It's so you're talking about telling other people and your coworkers what you're doing, the benefits of real estate, and then they became very interested in what you're doing, wanted to partake.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And this is one advice if you are looking into getting into real estate or if you're looking to even passively investing or whatever, right? All of this come from relationships. It's never too early to build relationship. Even for you, if you're consider actively investing and consider become a syndicator, always share what you're up to. Always share that you're in real estate. This is what you're doing. This is what you're up to, because you never know how you can help other people by just sharing your stories.
Yeah.
And then on the passive side, as Josh mentioned, right? Like there's a lot of different regulation out there, right? 506B, 506C. A lot of deals through 506B are great deals, but you cannot get in unless you know the operators.
Yeah.
So on both sides, it's never too early to build relationship because you could really benefit from each other and really add value to one another by just like building this relationship, getting to know what people are doing, sharing what you're up to, sharing what you're looking for. That's, I think, is the key to growing in real estate.
Yeah, and a lot of our deals, they all go undercover because they're on, people are on our email list to where we can spread the information because we know the people that are essentially going on our journey with us. And I would encourage the listeners, because I'm glad you brought this up, is just to reach out to Yang, myself, or whomever is doing real estate and say, hey, look, I just want to get on your email list, see what's coming over, and just kind of get the information, soak it up. And if you're wanting to get into real estate, see what others are doing and create, and then just mimic. You know, a lot of this is taking what someone else is doing and making it better and taking the good parts too. But and also mentorship. Actually, I want to talk on mentorship because in real estate, the what I love about it is that everyone in real estate, it loves to educate themselves and continue to just pump in the knowledge as much as they can. There's not enough time a day. Can you tell us a little bit about how you were mentored? I'm assuming you have a mentor or did, or how you educated yourself.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because I want to say when I was first started in real estate, I didn't have a mentor. And I can share with you, Josh, and all the listeners, that was when I was crying a lot because I didn't have anyone to reach out to, and it was feeling quite lonely. I didn't know that communities for real estate investors existed out there. So one thing that have been life-changing in my real estate investing journey is to have mentors, to have coaches, to have communities that you can rely on. I find it quite comforting knowing that the answers of what you want to know is out there. Yeah. Anything, any problem you have, any answer that you need is out there, right? You just have to ask enough people to get to your answer. So if you know that, right, I feel like there's nothing that you should be scared of, because literally no one is inventing the wheel. Like no one is doing this from scratch. Like everything is a repeatable process. So with that, I think with that in mind is kind of take the fear out of real estate investing, because you have people who are steps ahead of you that you can reach out to. You have people steps behind you that you can support. And this is the part that I love about the real estate investing, because as you mentioned, everyone is so supportive. Everyone is at your position at some point during their investing journey, and everyone just so supporting and really sharing what they got, what they need, and just get support from one another. I am a part of multiple different masterminds. I have multiple coaches and mentors, and I am so grateful for these people that just like can just help me with what I'm doing. And I'm also coaching other people, so I'm always looking to like, hey, here's what I did, here's what you can do, and just keep helping people along the journey.
That's awesome. That's great. That's perfect. And that just goes along getting in the room and showing up to these events and meeting people,
Yeah.
creating relationships. And it's where it's like synonymous. Everyone just works together.
Yeah. And Josh, what you just said about the relationship, like
Yeah.
that's how everything starts, and that's how you grow, and that's how you grow, not just in real estate, but that's how you can actually enjoy this journey.
Yeah.
The relationship is certainly that piece.
Perfect. So how would you how would you have a conversation? Say I'm a potential investor and I like what you're doing. I want to learn more about real estate, learn more about Yang. How would that conversation go?
Great question. So for me, whenever I hop on a call with a potential investors, it's not about me. It's about the people that I talk to. So it's about the potential investors, right? Our role as capital raisers is not to take your money and put it into a property. Our goals at capital raisers is actually help you, potential passive investor, to grow your wealth along with us. So we invest capital along with in any property that we invest in.
Yeah.
So the conversation I always like to start with the end goals in mind, right? So I always want to ask investors, because everyone is different. Are you currently in retirement and just looking for really strong cash flow to supplement your retirement because the stock market is nuts and just not giving you what you need in your retirement? The property that is good for you would have a completely different profile from someone who's in their 30s, who's have a stable W-2, a really high paying stable W-2, who's not really looking for cash flow, but can really bank on the appreciation to build their nest eggs later down the road.
Yeah.
Or are you someone who's currently saving for your kids' college tuition and you just want to invest stable, consistently in a syndication or two per year, so that by the time your kids go to college, you can use that for your kids' college education, right? Everybody's goals is different. And I don't think there's a set plan that, everyone's plan is different. And so I always want to know what people's are looking for. So I always start with the end goal in mind. What are your goals? What are you looking for? And so from there, I can help you understand, like, okay, maybe cash flow is something that you really want to focus on. Maybe it's a hybrid approach. Maybe you can get cash flow, but you probably really just want something that have a higher chance of doubling your capital within 5 years. So all of that comes out in our first conversation, what that looks like for you, what will be the best fit. And then the next step is just understand the logistics, like what does that look like for you? Are you ready to invest right now? You're looking for opportunity right now, or maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months. So you want to get that information clear. And then also how much you're looking to deploy. Is that 50, 100, 150, whatever that number looks like, or even like, hey, I have 25K, I'm not entirely sure what to do with it. My role is to help you in your financial journey. So whatever that looks like, whether it's with me or not, I'm happy to refer you to other people that could be a better fit for you to grow your capital. And then usually it's just a conversation of introducing myself, my experience. Here's the asset class that we usually look at. Here's the avatar we usually look for. And then usually the next step is, how comfortable are you with investing? For me, as a capital raiser, I always want investors to be able to make decision that they're confident in.
Yeah.
And the confidence come with education. So that's the next piece, like, okay, where are you in your education journey? Because I have resources that I can share. Here's something I can share so you can better educate yourself so that you can feel confident in your choice. And that's pretty much it. It's a conversation. It's not at all a commitment of like, you have to invest with me, otherwise I'm wasting my time. None of that. Like I mentioned, I reached my financial freedom. I'm really excited to be able to help people to create theirs. So it's really a conversation and see if it's a good fit.
Yeah, I like what you said about education, because competence truly equals confidence. The more you know about a topic, a subject, then you're just confident because you really essentially know what good versus bad looks like. So that's I'm glad you said that. Very good stuff. So, given your background and your analytical skills, how are you? You're vetting the sponsorship team, the operators, property management. But what are you all looking for in the market right now?
Great question. So for me personally, and what I'm currently focusing on for my investors is still cash flow. So a big part of what I personally focus on and for my investors are strictly cash flow. Sorry, not strictly cash flow, but I really want to look for a property that have cash flow, especially in a high interest rate environment. I'm looking for something that can have cash flow to help get people through the high interest rate environment. For me, as a scientist, as you mentioned, I have the analytical background to actually underwrite properties. That's actually how I started in multifamily syndication, is that I was doing a lot of underwriting. So that helped me. I think it's helpful. And if, people are listening who consider become a capital raisers or, who just interest overall, I think as a capital raisers, it's very crucial that you can underwrite and you can understand the underwriting, right? Because that's how you vet the deal. You have to understand where, for example, the cap rate is very sensitive. So if you can see where, okay, this person just push the cap rate down. And so that make the deal a lot more attractive than this actually is. So being a capital raiser, I think is crucial that people need to understand the underwriting and so understand where the leverage and where all the numbers are coming from so that they could actually properly vet a deal. Yeah. And I think it's also important because, as you talk to different investors, some people are very interested in the stories. They want to know what the business plan looks like. Some people are very interested in the numbers, and you're going to have people from both direction. Yeah. So being a capital raiser, you have to be able to have a conversation on both sides. So I think that with my background as a scientist, that really helped me vet the deal. It helped me be able to explain that to my investors. And I'm actually also participating on the asset management side. So leverage my experience already in the real estate. I can understand the business. My investor can feel like, okay, you're not just taking my capital and then handing it on to somebody else. I am actively participating in making sure that this is a successful project for my investors. So I think all of that is really helpful with, be able to capital raise and build confidence from my investors about the deals that I invest in personally. And overall, your question about, what am I looking for in a market, right? It's certainly, as I mentioned, cash flow is important. Really experienced operators in a market. I think with how the market is going, it is challenging. For me personally, I'm not saying people are not successful out there, but I'm really looking for operators who are experienced in the market. My first deal as a syndicator, I was participating in acquisition, underwriting, capital raising, and now we're in construction and asset management. All that piece was in a market that all of us have had 2 years of experience in and have had successful multifamily properties in already. So this is how investors actually get to leverage the operator's experience to be in a new market. So I think experience and cash flow are currently what I'm really looking for in my deals.
I love it. That's and I'm glad you guys are looking for cash flow, because that's if you're just wanting appreciation, I feel like you're dead on arrival, because no one ever went broke being profitable. Yeah, that's just the
right now, right?
Right, exactly. You've got to got to have cash flow, and that's that will supersede any other metric, any other anything else at any given time. You can service your debt and have some free cash flow to distribute. That's huge. And then experienced operators like myself, I'm an operator, so underwriting and analyzing the deals is extremely important because I'm essentially the jockey on the horse, and having other people in the team that can also analyze the deals. Now, I've had some deals from some other GPs that have come my way to just kind of get my opinion. And after you look at them and you're just hoping that no one ever actually goes through with this deal, because it's set up for failure. It doesn't make any sense. And I think that you're right. There are going to be some things happening in this market. And it's going to be more than anything, it's just inexperienced operators who essentially weren't even business owners to begin with. They just shouldn't have been doing what they're doing. But yeah, we'll see. Time will tell. But we're going to some we're going to say interesting times. I feel like on Q3, Q4, and we'll see what happens. But I love your story, love where you're going, where you're heading, your experience, the opportunities that you present to your investors, and many more to come. It's awesome. If someone wants to get a hold of you, how can they reach out and learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can find my website at onerivercapital.com, would spell out one OEN. So that's onerivercapital.com. I am also on Instagram and Facebook at that salsa investor. One thing I haven't shared is I am a competitive salsa dancer.
Nice.
So you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at that salsa investor. And I'm always happy to connect, to chat, and just share. Like I mentioned, real estate is all about relationships. So always love to build relationship with other people.
Awesome. All right, Yang, we definitely appreciate your time today. Appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you.
Awesome.